Morning from the hurricane capital of the world today. We're all kind of dodged this Hurricane Helene, and another Florida resident has the same problem. He's headed to Orlando for a big event, and we're so honored to have back on the program Coach Urban Meyer. Coach, Brenden and I are very happy to see you. Hope you're drying well.
Yeah, we got a little hurricane rolling. I think it's gonna stay offshore pretty much and hit the Big Bend area. But the wind's not the problem. It's that thing called storm surge. So
And
we're just everybody here is kind of keeping an eye on that.
yeah, been there, done that down that part of the country. It's always scary. Well, we do have football. One thing about hurricanes, it means it's fall football. And Urban, I was thinking about this interview this morning. We'd like to talk about all the positive things in college football because we love it so much. You and I and Brenden. And I was thinking to myself, we could go on with a litany of things that are not right about college football right now, but it's still the great game that we love. So let's talk about, first of all, the good things about college football. What a crazy season, Urban.
Yeah, the level of play has never been greater. When I covered Ohio State, I've covered not Georgia personally, but Texas personally. And what I've noticed about these teams, and I actually talked to a couple of the coaches about this. When we won those championships in '06 and '08, we had weaknesses on those teams. Everyone had weaknesses for most of the generations of college. Matter of fact, all have. You know what you see now? There's really no weaknesses on Texas, Georgia, or Ohio State because the weaknesses that were weaknesses, they went and fixed in the transfer portal. So I went through each one of those rosters, and obviously at Georgia, I just haven't seen them personally, so I can't gauge them. I like to see a team what they look like up close. Um, but when your right guard was a struggle or an issue after spring practice, that didn't change. You had to deal. You just had to plan around it. Now, I kind of joke around and say, you're like a genie, and all of a sudden a new right guard shows up. You pay some money, go steal from someone's team, and it's just it's interesting. But the level of play's never been better. There's great storyline. There's been great upsets. There's been, I cannot wait to get to Central Florida to watch Coach Prime and Travis Hunter is one of the greatest players I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Wow. Two-way player. And he's something else. Well, I'm looking, we're going to talk about that game, and I know you're going to be there. McNeil will be there. It's going to be a big, big weekend. I love all these new teams coming to Orlando now that they're members of the Big 12, all these Texas teams especially. And if I'm sitting in Gainesville, I got enough problems to worry about, but I don't like that part of the TV market, being crunched away. So it's a challenge for the Gators and the Gator fans as well as just the sort of, I won't say upstart because they've been in it for a long time. Gus Malzahn's been building, waiting for this moment. This could be his moment.
It should. And they run the ball as good as any team in the country. They got the Jefferson player from quarterback from Arkansas. He's 250 pounds, and he's a hell of a coach, Gus Malzahn. So they scheme up a really aggressive run game. Uh, Colorado has struggled historically over the last couple of years. However, they're much better on defense. So a real intriguing matchup. I can't believe I think it's a 14-point spread. When I saw that, I was like, that kind of shocked me. But it's also, and don't, I've done it with a team, don't devalue a team from the altitude coming to Orlando in September. Here's a guy that's playing 140 snaps a game and Travis Hunter. I'm sure they are. That guy better be drinking Gatorade after Gatorade after Gatorade right now. Don't wait for it during the game. So hydration and cramping will be an issue for Colorado.
Yeah. Talking to your friend Steve Spurrier about those things recently, and he was a little surprised about how Florida comes out early for an hour and in the sun to work. When you were at Florida, what did you do about that? The heat you'd had to deal with all the time. Steve didn't think they should be out there, his opinion. It wasn't criticizing that you don't want your players out in that sun any more than you want, especially in late August or September. Those are factors. Talk about some of the things you did at Florida to deal with the heat and swamp.
Well, I learned, I was kind of, I wanted a tough team. So I remember when I first got there, and back in the old training camp days where you had 2 days all the time, they told me you have to go early and then go late. And I said, no, screw it. We're going to go. We're going to toughen these guys up, and what a mistake that was. So eventually I figured out the 110 heat index. First of all, it's not safe. So we adapted right away. I learned a lesson. And then, Coach Mick also was educated. He's from the Midwest like I am. So we both learned along the way. And absolutely, pregame, you're out there briefly. You don't want to, you only have so many opportunities. You don't want to waste them in warm-ups. So, yeah, we cut way back. I didn't know the Gators do that, but that's certainly something that we learned along our journey.
Yeah, well, speaking of learning, certainly learning curve in Florida, a lot of Gator fans. I know you've been bombarded with people and calls and requests for interviews. And we don't have to go deep into it, but I know you are a man of great pride. The record you put up there at Florida, unbelievable. And Steve, and the two of you together are the gold standard in Florida. In a way, it's a curse for whoever the coach is. And you said on the interview the other day, I heard you talking about no greater place to play than the Swamp. It's like a jet plane behind you, the noise and stuff like that. I want to ask you to appeal to you on your pride right now, not as a coach criticizing. I talked to Coach Spurrier about this, and it's me as a guy who feels like he has a stake in this thing. I went to school there; it's my school, whatever. That is to say, it hurts on so many levels to see what you and Steve built, this unbelievable championship run, become eroded. And I'm afraid now we're at that level where some of it's been eroded. It'll never affect what you guys did, but Florida is now a laughing stock to some people, and it's just not getting better. Urban, tell me how you deal with it as a Gator.
Well, Coach Spurrier celebrated his 58th anniversary, and so Shelley and Jerry talked, and so I reached out to Coach to congratulate 58 years. And
I know.
he was
Okay.
typical Steve Spurrier, being the great friend that he is. And I asked him, I said, tell me about, because I just Gainesville is a very unique place. It's you step out your door and there's Gator fans everywhere. When I went to Ohio State on purpose, I moved 18 miles away. Number one, because I wanted to take a breath. Number two, my son was in 7th grade, and I didn't want him to just get bombarded. My kids, Gainesville is great, but everybody's on top of you, and I think most of it was self-driven, but the pressure and Shelly's the outgoer, and she wants, hey, let's go here, let's go there, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not leaving this house. I'm finally got a little peace and quiet here, so I can't imagine Gainesville right now, and I just feel I'm never going to criticize a coach. I'll never do that, but I also feel for him and his family. I really do, because he's a human being. I know they get paid well, et cetera, but the reality is that that's a tough, as all top 5, top 10 jobs are, which that no question is a top 5 job. It's tough.
Well, you saw the good times as well. Coach Spurrier, when he reached a level there after 12 years, and you want to go do something new, and sometimes I can see you not appreciate it. Hey, you didn't win a national title or SEC. What the heck's wrong with his team? You went through that same thing, and you went through it at Ohio State.
Yeah.
You expected to it. I mean, look right now, what's happening at Ohio State. I mean, he's done a fabulous job. His record is unbelievable, but yet people are not happy. So, I always think about you the day you went to the restaurant and got booed in Gainesville. I can't believe that happened to you.
Yeah, and I got the bad phone call too. That was, I think, before Mick Huber knew how to put a tape delay, and that was one where I looked at us, and I'm looking at these people looking at me. The majority of them didn't want me there, and I'm thinking, why am I here? Why did I? And that the thoughts that go through your mind, it's happened, and that's real. And I'm sure Coach Napier, I'm sure all the coaches have gone through. And I got to keep saying, that's not Florida. That's everywhere. That's the big, like you said, Coach Day has lost the Wolverines a few times, and you think the world's coming to an end. I'm finally at the point in my life where you look back and you're like, and this is hard for you guys to believe that, really? I mean, you lost a game, move on. There's a lot of other issues in life right now. I just had my 5th grandchild, a grandson. And
Oh, congratulations!
Oh, wow.
you look back, and I remember one time at Bowling Green, we lost to Western Michigan. I really didn't know if the sun was going to come up the next day. So,
Yeah,
that's maniac coaches. That's what it's like. And most of the guys at that level are maniacs.
Coach, what that culture, we talk about big business working in big entities and creating a culture of for I guess a narrative for your team to sort of rally and cry to get behind. It seems like in Florida, you talk about Gainesville. It seems like even Gainesville over the last 10 years has become complacent, and people are starting to sort of not expect to win as much. Can you talk about like what that means to you as a coach? I know that's probably hard to hear for you because I've heard you enough times talk about how important it is and how important it's been for you to win and create that winning culture, to believe that you can do and surmount all odds. Florida's sort of at that spot right now, or the Gators are at that spot, and in Gainesville. How do you come back, or can you come back, from where they are right now as a program?
Well, I did a video. I can't remember. It might have been with you guys, but it circulated this summer where I made a comment that, and it was not a shot at Coach Napier at all or his staff. It's just reality is, I've always thought Florida and Ohio State, Bowling Green was not. Utah was not. Utah is much better now, but we are in the Mountain West Conference. But Florida and Ohio State, you have everything you need to be the very best in the country at what you do. And so that was the standard. I would start every season we would have a retreat, and even in our post spring practice meetings with our players, I'd be very clear, say, you don't have to be here. There's plenty of other places where you can have more fun, where it can be, what's the big deal? A matter of fact, there's 100 of them. You can, and I'll help you go wherever you want to go. But if you're going to stay here, you're expected to be the very best in the country at what you do. That's coaches and players. If you're the running back coach at Florida, you better be the number one running back coach in America. If you're a running back, you better be the number one running back. And if not, we're going to work to get you there. And it's going to be at times miserable work, because greatness is really hard. And some people, that doesn't make you a bad person if that's not your job description. You have to commit 8 to 10 hours a day or more to be a great player. To a coach, you got to commit more than that. You're talking about 14, 15 hours a day if you want to be the best defensive line coach in the country. So that's the standard. You don't have to be here. There's a lot of people with their hand up that want to come here. And so those are the kind of things that I would always remind myself too. And it's hard. I mean, that living life like that, it's not easy. That's why there's a shelf life on people.
Yeah, Urban, thinking about defense right now, which a lot of people seem to be having problems with. Wow, the amount of points being scored on teams. I mean, you taught me when we were writing the book about the importance of defense when I said, in the plan to win, you say defense is the most important. And I asked you, right? Right? And you said, number one, and you said, I said, well, how do you get to have the best defensive staff? You said you pay them more money.
Yeah, I think there's two things. Number one, you always, if I'm an offensive coach, you see Kirby Smart playing incredible. I don't think someone scored a touchdown on them, I read. And that's because he's a defensive coach. He's got Will Muschamp, great minds. When I got hired everywhere, my highest paid guy was always my defense coordinator, always. And I took a great pride in recruiting. It was easy for me to recruit quarterbacks and receivers. That's been my life. But I spent more time recruiting the Carlos Dunlaps and the Brandon Spikeses and the Joe Haydens, Janoris Jenkins, the great, Major Wright, some of those monsters we had on defense. I spent more time on that than I did the offense guys, because in my mind, I knew, you don't have to be that really football intelligent to understand you have zero chance of winning if you're not playing great defense. I mean, winning at the level, Lincoln Riley's found that out a little bit. He's a great coach, but they haven't won a conference championship in quite a while. And it's because they haven't played good defense. And so defense has always been numero uno. And I'll add this, that we all play great defense. I would challenge our offensive staff too. Playing great defense doesn't mean the defense. That means the offense coordinator not calling stupid plays. That means the not turning the ball over and putting your defense in bad position. That means I was in charge of kicking game. We're going to play great defense today. You know how? We're not going to allow one punt return yard today, or we're going to go block a punt, whatever it is. But the mentality was play great defense. This entire 85-man roster and 10-person coaching staff is going to play great defense all together. And I think that makes sense to me.
I remember the game. I think it might have been against Arkansas in the SEC championship. When you had a moment on the sideline, you didn't know what to do, and whether to go for it or whatever. And he turned to Greg Madison and he said, "Coach, let's kick it away and go play great defense." Right? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah. He was
And you
walking
did.
at me. That was after we ran that fake punt on our 10-yard line, which I should have got my head examined, but it worked. And then later in the game, on the same drive, I was so pissed off that I was going to go for it again. And I looked and I trusted Greg. And I flipped over on the headset. And I said, "Greg, I'm going to go for it." And he looked, didn't yell at me. He just said, "Punt the ball. Let's go play some great defense." And we did.
Coach, I know you look at tons of games and Big Noon, and you look, you've checked out all the different teams that you need to you get tape on. I don't know how much you've seen of Florida, but could you tell, at least give me your assessment of what's really wrong with the defense in Florida? It seems like they have good personnel, they have good coaching. What do you see as the biggest the problem there on the defensive side of the ball for the Gators?
Yeah, I wish, Brenden, that I studied them more. My schedule isn't as such. We don't really cover the SEC. We're going to talk about Georgia, Alabama, so I did watch some of them. I have not watched Florida at all on tape. I have my computer set up so I get news because I have to be up to date, but I only have so many hours in the day. So to be honest with you, I can't really, I see the numbers, which is alarming, but I can't tell you their personnel. And I can't tell you their scheme.
Well, what would you do? I guess this hypothetically, you have a defense that's not performing. Everyone knows offensively, fundamentals, those kind of things, but you got on the line of scrimmage, they're struggling to get any pressure on the quarterback. Run defenses it seemed to be get pushed around with giant holes. Where do you start with something like that? Is it fundamentals? Is it tackling? Is it where do you go?
Well, in '07 was our worst defense we had in our time there, and we had a young defense, and we weren't very good. And so, unfortunately, Brenden and Buddy, the time to do that is not now. You're in it now. The ability to foresee a potential issue and fix it and spring and fix it. So what I did is, I had guys like Belichick, I had Monty Kiffin, bless his soul, and I had Paul Pasqualoni come in and spend hours and hours and hours, and I evaluated everything on our defense, and we obviously got much better in '08. But when you're in the mix, in the thralls of a season, the number one thing is you go right back to your fundamentals and find out why there's an issue and fix it immediately. Fundamental salt. I've said this, and it's in our podcast this week, that I really believe effort overcomes mistakes. And that be the first thing I look and see what's the effort like on defense. Effort and fundamentals solves a lot of problems. Because I got news. There's really not that many smart people. They talk smart, they act smart. And I'm talking about coaches, but you know what they do? They have teams that play with great effort and tackle well and play good fundamentals. I know that's what Kirby Smart does. Everybody thinks he's going to have, and Will Muschamp. I haven't studied them, but I really have studied them. I've studied great defenses. There's not some magic defense. It's effort and fundamentals. And I promise you, if effort and fundamentals improve, all of a sudden defenses improve.
Let's bring it back, Coach. I know we're going to wrap this up, talk about this weekend, what's happening in Orlando, UCF. We talked about Malzahn. Coach Prime comes in there with a team that's struggling right now. And at the same time, we're looking at Malzahn and UCF as about the team is coming after Florida, that team down south, and they got to get ready for it because this is a good football team. Set the table for me on this weekend's game with that you're covering, and let's talk for a minute about Malzahn, about what he's got building there, and what Florida fans should prepare for.
Well, first of all, when he went to Central Florida from Auburn, he's one of those guys that got fired at Auburn, and I go ask him right now at Auburn, who do you wish you had him back?
Wow.
I've always respected Gus Malzahn, and he's his story is incredible. Coming through the high school ranks all the way up. So I think he's, Central Florida is not a good place. It's a great place. People have won there, starting back with George O'Leary. Everybody's won there. And so, I mean, even one year, I think Coach Frost claimed the national championship. That's a winning program. It's in the heart of the best talent in the country. And I'm not shocked at all. They got
Great
a long
fan
way
base.
to go. They got a long way to go, though. I mean, they're good, really good. They're bordering on great. This will be a great measuring stick.
All right, now we got what's happening next when they come to town for the Gators. How would you feel about these interlopers from down in Orlando coming to get some of what you got in Gainesville right now?
I honestly, Central Florida, if Florida is really worried about, all due respect to Central Florida, it's not Florida. And it's going to take a long time to get to the history of Florida. So, all due respect, I mean, I love Central Florida, but as long as me and you, we're still talking about the University of Florida Gators. That's like saying the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's like saying Alabama Crimson Tide, the Texan Longhorns. So once again, that if that's a problem, then that's really a problem.
Brenden, he's still a Gator, and he's got orange and blue blood in him. I can tell.
Well, it's been so long since we talked. Not so long. It's been a while since we talked, and I just forget every time how motivated I feel every time you talk, Coach. You just have something about you that just makes you want to get up and play football. Like I just want to go find my old pads and go out there and go knock them around. Let's go. Let's play some Oklahoma. Like I
take
just
the hitting. It's too hard.
It's just yeah, it's great, and boy, we sure miss you down in here in Gainesville. That's for sure.
Well, it's good to be with you guys.
Hey, Garvin, thanks so much. Good to be with you. Have a great weekend.